Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, colleagues. Welcome to the April webinar of the Local Government and Municipal Authorities Constituency towards COP29. My name is Yunus Arikan. I will be the moderator and presenter of the session today. As our usual practice, we will give a couple of more seconds for colleagues to settle down so that we are not disturbed too much. So we thank you for your patience. And we'll be back quickly. Great. So I think we're all settled. Thanks a lot once again joining our webinar. My name is Yunus Arikan. I'm the Director of Global Advocacy at ICLE Local Governments for Sustainability. This is a webinar. It's a monthly webinar for the Local Governments and Municipal Authorities constituency in preparation towards the 29th Conference of Parties. We are taking these webinars, I think, since 2015 or so, on a regular basis. We take this every month, once in the Eastern Hemisphere and once for the Western Hemisphere, the same days. This month in April, we had to make a slight adjustment. We are usually in the third week of April, third week of the month, but now this week we are a bit delayed, and we thank you for your patience in that regard. So our usual practice is that we take ourselves through some basic background information. Some of the participants of the webinars may not be with us before, so just to keep them all on the same page. We rather keep this relatively short, but if there are any questions, we can respond. Then we go to some of the flashback to COP28 and review what has been achieved since the last webinar and what are the important timelines in the days ahead. For this webinar, we will also focus on our progress with our position paper, joint messages. Our colleagues who have been working on that process will also be joining us in the next couple of minutes. In some cases, we have guests. This month, we don't have any special guests, and our colleagues from the Biodiversity Center may not be available today, but we are aware relatively things are not too much changing, especially towards COP16 in Colombia and Cali. We have made good progress so far. So we can focus more on our priorities in the climate agenda. So with this in mind, I also have noticed my colleague Teresa from Committee of the Regions has also joined, so she will be the one who will take us through the drafting of the LGMA 29 COP29 joint messages. So we are the voice of subnationals, towns, cities, regions in the United States process since '95. We are engaging in the negotiations. We provide inputs. We support the action agenda of the champions. We collaborate with the presidencies in defining their priorities and engage our proposals and inputs. And of course, we interact with the nations, those especially with the friendly to the multi-level action. It's not just only the end of the year, the pavilions or the COP, but we engage throughout the year through submissions, participation in the workshops of the NFCC. Of course, these are all a bit restricted or limited with our capacities and resources. In some cases, the timing and the venues of the meetings may not be so good, suitable for us, but we are doing our best. And we have some updates in the next couple of slides on the latest ones. Other than these webinars, of course, you can access to the previous webinars, and once you register, you can already include the calendar invite to your mail so that you can track the other webinars as well. We also have monthly webinars. We usually release this monthly webinars after our webinars, because through our webinars we already receive some updates and some clarification. So it's an opportunity, but we also receive inputs from the LGMA partners, the networks who are involved in this process as well. Um, we are literally enjoying the kickoff of a new era since COP28. We believe the outcomes, we will just again review shortly, but the outcomes was really the kicking off a new era. And this new era is also building on the previous decades of work. What we see is that the UNFCCC, the climate negotiations started in 92, especially with the adoption of the convention and the first COP, the Conference of Parties in 95. During this process, we were recognized as a constituency, but in the implementation of the convention and the Kyoto Protocol, we were relatively sidelined. Therefore, we were in the first 12 years, we were relatively silent or in the periphery. Starting from 2007, we started to convene the proposal, communicate the proposal that there was this expectation that in Copenhagen in 2009 there will be a new climate regime, and we launched our local government climate roadmap at that time, 2 years before, to ensure our recognition, engagement, and empowerment of all levels of government. Obviously, with the delay or break in the Copenhagen, let's say. There was a gap of around 5 to 6 years. And during this process, we built on our efforts, and we continued to support the multilateral process. That was the way that we reached the Paris Agreement. And in that sense, we have our first major achievement, where recognition of all levels of government, the Paris Agreement preamble. And since then, as you can notice, the LGMA interventions and initiatives were also exploded. So until Paris Agreement, we were on our own mainly. We were creating some initiatives, processes, but starting from Paris Agreement, we had received much more contribution, and there was a better understanding for multi-level action. The first result of this era was in Glasgow. The concept of multi-level action was incorporated in the Glasgow Climate Pact, and with the efforts in Sharm el Sheikh and in Dubai, we made sure that the parties recognize and they are urged for multi-level action in paragraph 161. And we have an important initiative called CHAMP, which is what we will use as an effective tool, because it is a commitment of not just the cities and regions, but it's a commitment of the national governments for new climate plans to be developed and implemented in a multi-level spirit. We have several paragraphs in the Dubai Consensus. Our CHAMP initiative, which we supported at LGMA, is part of the key outcomes, and the Troika, we expect that they will also have a look at these processes. In that regard, we consider Dubai as the most ambitious, inclusive, and multi-level outcome. Um, outcome with most ambitious, inclusive, and multi-level spirit. Um, the references in adaptation, in global stocktake, and direct subnational access. These are the key documents where we are using now to build further. And along these efforts, from the local climate action to the urban ministerial, our strength is that the LGMA constituency have been instrumental in making the connection between all these efforts, and our pavilion, our engagement, our commitment uh, have provided key support to the success of this processes. We are all aware sometimes these processes are a bit on their own, and our commitment to make sure there is a bridge and there is a linkage among all these initiatives was the strength that we achieved. That it's not just initiatives or conferences, but it's also in the decisions that we are being now in the phase for implementation. So those who are involved in this process, you're aware it's a cyclic process. Every year, the country who hosts continues to be the president and take care of the decisions. This continues around June, mid-year, and starting from the mid-year, from the Bonn conference, the incoming presidency starts to take over or becomes more active with their delegation priorities. So in that regard, as of today, we're still very much engaged with the presidency, the COP28 presidency and high-level champion from Emirates. The COP29 delegation leadership has also been now introduced to us. We have some references in the next slides. But obviously, this year which will be a new era again. This shows why this era is very interesting and important and powerful because we have a troika. We have the COP28, COP29, and COP30 presidencies who are already starting to work collectively. So this has not happened before. This gives us a longer time frame in terms of engagement and their leadership, especially Dubai demonstrated an exemplary leadership, not just ambition, but also providing tools, opportunities, with the availability of their funding and opening platforms for us. We still hope that they will continue with this troika, that it will not be out of their control anymore, but they will still support both Azerbaijan and Brazil in the coming months. Since the beginning of the year, we are mapping our agenda through three channels, our own activities of LGMA constituency. We are convening our own events like Mayor Summit and networks, conferences, or their entities like we will discuss, or the latest one now we have seen Belém Climate Week, London Climate Week, New York Climate Week. We have UNFCCC agenda, regular meetings, type of body meetings. The one thing that is this year's uniqueness is that we have three conference of parties of the three conventions and the UN Environment Assembly and the UN Summit of the Future, which makes us very busy. But it's good to make sure there is the synergy among those. And at the global level, there are several initiatives run by some countries like G7, G20, which is out of the UN procedures. But thanks to our engagement with these processes, we are actively contributing to the discussions there and the outcomes so that we can feed this to the negotiation agenda in the official UN settings. I would keep some time here in this slide because that's the summary of what we have achieved since our last webinar. I think it was 20th of March, huh? And today. Um, and then we will also reflect here in this slide, like what to expect in the next couple of weeks. First of all, we had last month participation in Aalborg at the Copenhagen Ministerial Conference. This is becoming like a regular practice. Of course, you can argue that Copenhagen has a bit of bad taste in the UNFCCC negotiations because of the legacy of 2009. But the Danish government, especially in the last 3 years, on the way to Glasgow 2021 onward, they have created this momentum like every year around March, end of March or beginning of April, they convene the ministers, climate ministers, in an informal setting, and that gives them the chance to dialogue, to have dialogues. And the good news that these processes are also open for the constituencies like LGMA as the focal point, but we make sure our delegations are there in the most appropriate way. What has been now become a practice is that Copenhagen ministerial is at end of March, Petersburg ministerial or climate dialogues in the end of April or beginning of May in Berlin. Then we have the UNFCCC official meetings and pre-COP, which is usually 1 month before the conference of parties is convened either at the same country of the host country or a similar neighboring country. And then we reach the COP. This means that ministers can connect to each other at least 4 times a year. This gives them this opportunities give them the chance that they can start to understand their positions and then start for their uh, conclusions that they will adopt, so that the process is not only limited to the last couple of hours, but they are already aware of what to expect. And in all these meetings, especially in the last couple of years, we have made sure that all the constituencies are invited, usually by only one seat, so that we can make sure that the appropriate representatives can be joining that. So in this year, 2024, it was the deputy mayor of Aalborg who will host the European Sustainable Cities and Towns in October. And Aalborg is one of those Danish cities in the Danish 2020 program run by C40 and the Danish government. Denmark is one of the champ endorsers. So it's an opportunity that we have a political leader engaged in this dialogues. It's usually that these ministerial dialogues are closed meetings, so it's not webcasted, so that they can interact freely. But all the constituencies, trade unions, indigenous people, women and gender, youth, scientists, and others. They're all in the room and they can interact freely. And that's really an innovation that we wish that this continues. In the official UNFCCC process, you cannot have this opportunity every time. But since these are informal, that's an opportunity. Over the past couple of years, our constituency is also interacting with the IMF or World Bank, especially in the efforts to revise or redesign our global finance architecture. And this year, it's usually C40 GCOM colleagues who have been leading this process. There had been another occasion this month, and especially there was a letter from mayors around the world that were submitted to the heads of the development banks and multilateral banks that was creating an agenda for us, especially with the COP28 outcome. These are good opportunities. We have several submissions, one on global resilience submitted by Regions 4 and Committee of the Regions. The global resilience, the important thing is that we have in the Marrakesh Partnership and the global adaptation agenda, this is more like action agenda, but global resilience framework is an official UNFCCC process. So there are first workshops, I think, this week in Bhutan. We were not able to mobilize a representative, but we were able to submit a document, and we can share the link later on. There was another submission from ICLE on the Article 6.9, 6.8, which is the non-market approaches. We are particularly pushing the concept of sustainable urbanization, and we are making progress. Local, the UN Capital Development Fund, has been recognized as one of the initiatives, and we would like to make sure that overall sustainable integrated urban development is considered as a non-market approach, and initiatives like Local could be one of those uh, exemplary models, and hope our submission also includes that we would wish to see a spin-off group on multi-level action. So let's see how this will resonate. During this month, there were also meetings of loss and damage funds, and this week there's also the workshop on a new quantified goal on climate finance. Unfortunately, we were not able to uh, be represented in person in these meetings, but we will make sure that we will follow up later on. One point we have to add here, we had a dialogue with the global stock take. The co-chairs will convene the GST annual dialogue, and we have already made a submission, and the submission on behalf of LGMA was available in the documentation, and on this virtual dialogue, UCLG represented us, and we will add this into this list as well. I will spend some time in the Belém Climate Week. It was really a remarkable moment. And IPCC as well. It's in the next slide. And waste is becoming more popular. And we also so just seen on the Earth Day the launch of the Ending Plastic Pollution Local and Subnational Governments Coalition. These are important because these are becoming more and more agenda in the UNFCCC negotiations and the climate action agenda, thanks to the inclusive spirit from Dubai. Therefore, the topics like these kind of food, waste, culture, nature, which is in most cases the root cause of climate emergency, we are able to address, and through this initiative, we will make this more visible. Um, what's expected in the next couple of days? Tomorrow and on Friday, in Berlin will host the Petersburg Climate Dialogue. The governor of California, Mr. Gavin Newsom, will connect virtually in one of the plenaries. That's an important opportunity because it is a reflection on the importance that the parties have dedicated to LGMA constituency. We also have seen in the agenda there will be an intervention from a scientific community and the business community. So uh, in the previous dialogues, there were some other constituencies, indigenous people or others. I think and a subnational leader is for the first time intervening at the plenary of the Petersburg Climate Dialogue, which is really good. And California has been front running of our activities, and also the founding fathers of the Under Two Coalition, which is an important partner in our constituency. I will be there in person. so that I will be able to interact, especially in the roundtables. There's only one seat, and this time I'm taking this opportunity. Um, so we will see how the informal dialogues will evolve. Um, Next week, Tuesday, we will have the densities webinar. I will also touch upon it in slightly later on, but the good news is that we will also have a dialogue with the co-chairs, and we will have some updates from the champ process, including our agenda. So I recommend you to join our webinar, densities webinar. This will really be for an opportunity to prepare for the UNFCCC Bonn Climate Conference at the beginning of June. This year, G7 Climate Festival is taking place in Italy, in Torino. Unfortunately, unlike the Japanese and German presidency, this year we are a bit having some difficulties to ensure our presence there. Uh, we were very actively engaged in this roundtable on sub-national climate action between urban and climate ministers. This year we are a bit out of this process. The urban ministerial that was originally planned for July is now postponed to November. So we'll see. This will be how we will engage. We assume there will be more opportunities because the working group is still uh, continue to engage us, and both the Italian presidency and as well as the Urban Seven chair, the AMSI is also actively engaged. Um, in the in the beginning of May, there will be UN Habitat Executive Board. I have another slide on that. There are some discussions on the surge there, and the mitigation work program. The Sorry for the typo. We'll update that. Mitigation Ambition and Implementation Work Program. That's the full name. It is a legacy from Sharm el Sheikh, COP27. This year they will focus on cities. We have another slide on that. The dates are more or less announced, and we will have some opportunities depending on the in-person conditions as well. A couple of visualization of what I've discussed. This is presented here. The photos from the Copenhagen dialogue. You can see Deputy Mayor of Anna Ayen, Deputy Mayor of Aalborg, together with Nigar Arpadaray, COP28 President Sultan Jaber, and COP29 incoming President, sorry, President designate Excellency Muhtar. Sorry, the surname I have to check once again in order not to make any mistake. Mukhtar Babayev. So there was this opportunity for the first time we were engaging, and the second family photo you can see from the IMF World Bank dialogue hosted by C40 and GCOM, which engaged a number of our leaders and partners. Belém Climate Week. Belém will be the host of COP30. It was an impressive. I had the privilege to be there in person. It was an interesting case because just 1 week before this event that you will see now in the list, it was a massive number of engagements. The UNFCCC announced that they are not hosting any more regional climate weeks. This was important because regional climate weeks was an opportunity for us to engage after the continental, let's say, regions that were neighboring. They were able to discuss their priorities and achievements. So with this cancellation of this process, because lack of resources, of course, creates a void. But the event that City of Belém, as the host of COP20, came up in the right moment that it could almost reflect as the Latin American Climate Week. We had at least six parallel or complementary events, ministerial meetings hosted by Minister of Cities, of Urbanization of Brazil, Urban Shift Latin America Forum, third ICLE Brazil National Meeting, Amazon Cities Forum, the network of the capital cities of Brazil, um, and a Gap Fund project participants. We're all interacting together. There were moments where we all met together, but there were also separate moments. But it was impressive. The first meeting is for me is very valuable because that is the picture where you see three ministers of Brazil and the deputy mayor of Belém on the podium, Minister of Environment, Minister of Cities, and Minister of Science and Technology. These are the three ministries who are contributing to national climate planning, and their contribution, collaboration with local regional is exemplary. Minister of Cities here, Mr. Jader Filho, has been playing an instrumental role. But we know Brazil has a legacy for years. It is one of the first countries who have a minister of cities, ministry of cities, although this was a bit, um, let's say, out or underutilized during the Bolsonaro era. But with the Lula administration, the second Lula government, it is back. And Adalberto Maluf is also one of the former city of Sao Paulo colleagues. He is acting on behalf of Minister of Environment under Marina da Silva, and Minister of Science and Technology is the partner in the JEF8 project of which is an important initiative under Urban Shift. So that reflects the diversity. Um, the second picture is also reflecting because it's not national actors. Here you see representatives from European Union who was there on behalf of the Global Council. Here you see the Secretary General of OCTA, the Amazonian Forum, which is recognizing it's an intergovernmental among the states of 8 Amazon states, and they have recognized Amazon Forum. And again, this was part of the ICLE's third National Assembly, and that's giving us the opportunity that we can create the momentum. And the first picture here is in fact a, a, a I forgot the English name. I said verbal advertisement, street advertisement, outdoor advertisement. But you can see it everywhere in Belém. So the key message is that, as far as I know, city of Belém and government of Brazil is the first country who has started at least 2 years ahead of the preparation. This was a case in Brazil, in Paris, I remember, and Emirates was also starting early. But the difference is that city of Belém and the ministries, so that it is a collective effort, all of government and all of society. And when you walk through the streets of Belém, you see posters of COP30, the banners that is preparing that they will be proud hosts. And this is important because there are still discussions how a city like Belém, which is relatively small in size, could convene or could host a massive gathering of thousands of people. We're talking about uh, tens of thousands. And of course, one important thing is that after seeing Belém and the atmosphere, the Amazonas, the river Amazon, the moment of the place where it was connected to the Atlantic Ocean, for any environmental and climate activists, I think it's a place to be visited because the atmosphere, the relation of the people of Belém with Amazonas is really unique, and it gives us the reason why we have to be ambitious. But we should not let this be putting us in a difficult situation that, because of our interest to be there, should not be a barrier for City of Belém to host this COP. So I think there is a huge task to the UNFCCC Secretariat, but as well as to the constituencies like us, to manage the expectations that the size of our participation should be respectful to the capacities of Belém, so that they are not overloaded, or because of this stress, they should not be giving up hosting the COP. That is for me the biggest message coming up. And what we are also happy during this, especially meetings, a couple of announcements were made. One was the ICLE, Inter-American Development Bank, and City of Belém convened, announced their partnership to prepare the climate plan for Belém, and City of Belém also joined C40's Nature Accelerator. Plus, we had a number of trainings on finance and circularity. IPCC scoping meeting for special report on cities and climate change convened. We are, of course, waiting for the final announcement because the skeleton of the report is now created, and we were very happy. There were so many urban practitioners from LGMA constituency, from UN Habitat, and so many scientists that are relevant and they have been engaged with us. That we are where they have created this momentum. We are very happy what we have put the seeds in 2016 is now bearing its fruits. The important thing is that this will be a report that will be available in 2027, which will be after the new NDC. So it will be an opportunity for us to convince the national governments to be more actively engaging local and regional governments into the process. throughout the year, we are expecting that the IPCC will, in the plenary in July, will approve this structure of the report and its processes, mechanisms. There will be lead authors to be selected. We will discuss this in our upcoming events like One Conference, Daring Cities, Sao Paulo Congress, Innovate for Cities in Montreal, and obviously WOP 12, so that we will pave the way gradually and make sure that what we are doing now is connected. Um, One important agenda, upcoming agenda that UN Habitat Executive Board will be discussing the proposal from UN Habitat Secretariat or UN Habitat teams on how to advance surge. This, of course, is an important agenda because surge is the only climate-related initiative that is recognized in the UN Habitat Assembly resolution. This was 2023 June, and that at that time there was no CHAMP initiative. Of course, it was in the making. Um, on the way, since this adoption, and ICLE had been partnering, of course, supporting the UNEP because we were invited by COP27 presidency to support the process or facilitate the process. We have seen this proposals from UNHabitat as it was presented to the board ahead of this early in the COP28, at the beginning of COP28, ICLE have circulated a kind of a non-paper, which was also summarized by the video message of ICLE Secretary General to the UN Executive Board meeting in November 2023. In our proposal, we presented our expectation that the Surge initiative as such should be implemented in synergy with other processes so that it should not be considered a standalone UN Habitat initiative only, but it should really have this inclusive and interactive engagement with the partners, such as, especially with Marrakesh Partnership, the action agenda, with the NDC partnership, a funding mechanism that is important, an opportunity for urbanization, which doesn't exist yet, so that Surge could provide this, and the synergy between CHAMP, the Urbanization Climate Minister, and the work of LGMA. That was our vision. We have read the proposal. There are some overlap with our proposals, but I think we will still have to vocally present these to the parties involved in the executive board as well as to the Habitat executive teams, so that this process is evolving because this has to be discussed with in synergy with what's coming up with the surge, the CHAMP implementation, so that it's also in the making. So we are going like an iterative process so that every outcome will feed into each other. Daring Cities is coming. We had one webinar in 26th of March, another one on the 12th, 30th of April. I see Teresa asking, yes, the second webinar will be recorded. And as of today, Daring Cities will have 4th and 5th of June as the peak days. On the 4th, we will be at the GIZ auditorium. We will have the first champion endorsers roundtable and several breakout groups, including in-person participation of COP28 and COP29 presidents, which is a great opportunity for us. On the 5th of June, we'll be in the UNSCC inside the UN for multi-level dialogue and several other side events and opportunities. And we will continue with the virtual sessions and feed into the multi-level action and urbanization pavilion. Sharm el-Sheikh Adapt Mitigation Ambition and Implementation Work Program is advancing. We are very happy that they will focus on cities. This is the importance is that the outcome of this workshop or this process will feed into the negotiations in Baku. So that is a difference than engaging in a climate action agenda initiative. So this is exactly reflecting our expectation that we have multi-level action as a decision in the COP28, and now such meetings will help us to shape, formulate it. We are in touch with the team who is leading this, and I'm very happy to inform you that we will be hearing further vision of the co-chairs. One of the co-chairs, Dr. Amr Abdelaziz, will join us at the webinar on the 30th of April. And we are also discussing whether during Daring Cities we can have an interaction with him and other co-chair or delegations, because as of today, the current dates are not very suitable for our subnational participation because it's just a week before Daring Cities. Um, so that we should make sure there is an interaction. Obviously, this workshop is to the negotiators, towards negotiators, and we are there again as observers. But because of the theme and because of the respect to the LGMA constituency, we are much more actively involved in the design of this event. So we will come back to that. So I would now like to give a break here and invite my colleague Teresa from Committee of the Regions to keep us informed about the process on the drafting of the COP29 joint messages for the LGMA constituency, a process that we announced last webinar, that at least we have now a roadmap to develop this process, and there have been some initial preparations. The floor is yours, Teresa. We'll forward to your updates.
Thank you very much, Yunus. So yes, as you explained in previous webinars and also in the update emails that you sent every month, building on the positive experience last year with the first LGMA joint position for COP28, we decided to launch the same process this year ahead of COP29. The objective of this joint position is that all networks within the LGMA constituency come together with our priorities for this year. The document will serve as our inputs to the UNFCCC Secretariat, to the COP presidency, to the Troika, to champ endorsers, and also to all negotiators. So we have what we want to see included in the COP29 outcome documents, and also with messages that the representatives, the subnational representatives in our networks ahead of COP29 and going to Azerbaijan can use when talking to the national governments, when talking to the negotiators, when speaking in side events, etc. In terms of content, the draft as it is at the moment builds, of course, on our achievements at COP28, on CHAMP, on loss and damage, on adaptation, on LCAS, etc., and has a strong focus on implementation, of course, on the inclusion of subnational governments in the update of the next round of NDCs ahead of COP30, and of course this year on finance, on the NCQG. In terms of next steps, you have the nice graph in the slide, but I can comment on that briefly. The drafting committee is currently finalizing the first draft as we speak. In the next few days, we will share the draft with the members of the different LGMA working groups so that they can add their inputs and also redefine the messages in their areas of expertise. Around mid-May, we will share this draft with the whole LGMA so that you can look at the text, add your inputs, make as many changes as necessary. And we will give you, of course, a couple of weeks so that you have enough time to look at it. Once we have a solid draft after May, we will launch the consultation process for those who didn't have the chance to comment on the first draft, and also for the subnational representatives in your networks to look at it. You will have the entire summer, and the deadline for final comments will be the 23rd of August, more or less. This is, of course, flexible. The formal launch for endorsement will take place during the UN Summit of the Future that I'm sure you will attend in New York in September, with closing of endorsement the first day of COP29 in Azerbaijan, with the press conference exactly as we did last year. So that's the idea. Those are the objectives and more or less the timeline, which is, of course, flexible. Last year, we got endorsement from more than 65 networks. We hope that this year those 65 will join, and of course more. This is a joint effort, it's a collaborative work, so we really invite you to all to look at it, add as many changes as necessary, add your inputs, of course being mindful of the length of the documents because it is already quite long. And if you have questions, you can reach out to Yunus or to any member of the drafting committee. We will be happy to answer your questions, to include you in the drafting committee, to include you in the different working groups. And that's it. Happy to reply to any questions you may have.
Thank you, Teresa. Maybe a couple of complimentary remarks. First, we will make use of our densities and the June meetings in Bonn, so that there will be hopefully some participation in person. That will also give us the chance to interact and share these documents. So that's not always virtual, but there will be some moments for in-person dialogues. But we also know there are limitations, so that virtual is also more giving us more chance for participation. The second one on the working groups, we have now, as you may remember, we have defined, based on the COP28 vision of work, we have defined those working groups. I'm very happy. Many of them have now more or less names assigned to this. It doesn't mean that all of them are working in the same pace. They are having, of course, different synchronization. Um, some of them are still not in full speed, and there are still spaces for other partners of LGMA to contribute into this process. So it is a message to all of you to be more active engaged, especially with your expertise. In one organization, we would like to welcome different partners, different individuals, because if you have seen, it's impossible for one person or one network to handle all the agendas on their own. This is a really complex process, and especially with COP28, climate agenda is becoming the encompassing agenda on the sustainability, and that it is supporting the development agenda much better than ever. And in that sense, this is also giving us the chance that we are reducing this dichotomy or narrowing the gap between climate community and development community or SDGs. So that's why LGMA work in that sense is very, very now has to be much more skilled, much more professional, and much more broader in order to meet these expectations of this new climate era, climate agenda. Okay. Um, During the Q&A, we can still have inputs, and if there are any things that Teresa you can also compliment. Um, I think yes, we have more or less come to the end of our uh, overall presentation with this final slide. Uh, in the chat box, I see Teresa, you were asking about the recording of the 30th of April webinar. Yes, it will be recorded. The first one is also available. What we know as of today, mayors of Bonn and Niterói from Brazil, they will be intervening either in person or live. Especially, we are very happy to have Mayor of Niterói joining us because he has he was one of the key leaders during the Belém Climate Week, and he has been actively involved in a number of dialogues with Minister of Cities, with other ministries, and because he can really reflect the atmosphere from Belém much better than I do because he is proudly one of the participants of this discussions. And other than that, we are expecting to have interventions from Jamila Elmir from COP28, high level champion special advisor, and as well as Asif Nawaz Shah, who is our traditional long term colleague and our best partner in this COP28 subnational engagement team. Um, they would like to provide updates on their side, and Agat Kavicioli will also join us to share updates on the progress with the CHAMP implementation. As I mentioned, we are expecting to have a dialogue with Dr. Amr Abdelaziz, who is leading the preparations of this mitigation work program. This is exciting because this will be our first interaction with him. That will give us the chance to be much more prepared for the upcoming meetings. There will be two meetings in the year. I will try to share additional agendas that we have discussed on our strategy and our agenda in the UNFCCC process. And we will also give more detailed breakdown or preparations for the densities, what to expect in Bonn, but also virtually. And this will be a 1 hour webinar, and we will provide you more updates with the links as well. So for those who are not able to join us, I also would like to remind all the colleagues the deadline for inputs to the LGMA monthly webinar, monthly bulletin. The communications team is working on that, and it will be an opportunity uh, to um, to share your updates in our collective, let's say, communication channel that we can share widely. I see an input from Nupur from ICLA European Sector, who is one of the members of the transparency. Nupur, would you like to address personally? We can, of course, give you the access so that you can verbally present if you're suitable in your setting. If not, we can read your message. Okay, I do I see Nupur?
Yeah, they're rejoining now as a panelist.
Hi,
1 second.
perfect. Thanks, Kata.
Okay, if you can hear me, I can do a very just a quick
Yep,
minute of an
perfect.
update. Just saying
Yep.
that because now ICLE and WRI are co-leads on the transparency working group, you will soon get a doodle for a preparatory meeting from Gerkshin, and we will hope to receive many feedbacks from everyone because we are very actively engaged now in this space and really want to make a difference in how we can move ahead fast, effectively. And Yunus, I won't take any more time, but people can contact. I've put my email there as well, and people can contact us and sort of be in touch. Thank you very much.
Maybe for those colleagues who are may not be familiar, this is the process. Of course, monitoring, verification, reporting is an agenda that is important in the UNFCCC. We have made this a good agenda during the Race to Zero under the champions. There had been already some processes on that, but on the way to the COP27, the UN Secretary General also created his own high-level expert group. They produced a report, Integrity Matters, and we have contributed. There had been efforts from the UN Secretary General, especially for a checklist that we were trying to influence or provide response. Obviously, at those moments, we did not have such an LGMA-wide working group, and we did not have this systematic understanding of what's going on inside the UNFCCC, what's going on with the UN Secretary General. So the fact that this working group will be able to address both of this process and make sure there is these processes also talk to each other and feed into each other and they reflect our voices in the most appropriate is a brilliant opportunity. So thanks for your leadership, ICLA and WRI, and we know other colleagues are also contributing to this. What I would suggest, we have an LGMA COP29 tracker file, and we have updated all the colleagues in the LGMA mailing list who have access to this document. I know our webinars are broadcasted. There are some participants of this calls who may not be member of the LGMA constituency. Therefore, we are not sharing with you the link directly. But if you are already in the mailing list, which is a bit more internal communication channel, we can have you can access to this list of participants of these working groups, or you can announce that you want to be involved. You can immediately write your name so that the coordinators can reach to you, just like announced. I also see some other colleagues. Marta from C40. I see who is leading the Just Transition Work Program. I see Philip from SLOCAT at UITP, who is committed to lead our work on energy and mobility. In case, and I see John from Finance Working Group. In this group, if you wish to share any updates, feel free to take the floor, so that this could be an opportunity for you to provide your updates as well. But we can continue also on emails. We still have 10 more minutes. We can still receive input, any clarification, or any additional points that we missed. Feel free to raise your hand so that we can bring you to the debate. If not, we can always, of course, save our time and cut our session shorter so that you can use this time, valuable minutes, for your own personal agendas. What I can say maybe back. Uh, let's go to this slide. Um, this April, it was important with the meetings in Copenhagen, Washington, submissions, Belém, IPCC meeting in Riga, and the Plastics Coalition. And we are now prepared for a couple of days and weeks ahead with Petersburg Climate Dialogue in Berlin, Daring Cities webinar, G7 climate ministers in Italy, United Executive Board, and Mitigation, Ambition, and Implementation Work Program as our upcoming agendas in May. And in the meantime, we will be working with our working groups and the drafting committee to prepare our inputs, which will be much more intensely discussed during Daring Cities in Bonn and virtually and will bring our consolidated preparations to the COP29 in Baku this year. With this, I assume we can conclude this round. I thank you all for all your participation and engagement. Wish you a happy and healthy day and evening and afternoon. This webinar will be repeated at 5 p.m. today. There was a clash. We are sorry for this change. We hope the colleagues who have registered are still able to join us, and you will receive the recording and the link to the webinar tomorrow so that you can follow up further. Thank you all, and